Hi, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. I so appreciate you tuning into the podcast. I am very aware of how priceless our time is. I think it's more valuable than money because you can't get your time back, right? So I'm so appreciative of you listening to this. My voice is a bit rough because I'm actually really tired. This week, I signed up for a public speaking course that happens to be in Australia. So I'm getting up at 3:30 every morning to be in the live classes and be able to participate and doing the funny exercises they have. I have been invited to do suddenly an avalanche of speaking engagements, and I thought it might be handy for me to learn actually how to, first of all, speak slower, as many people have pointed out. I speak very fast, which is, I think, in one way nice because I get really bored if somebody's mumbling and walk and talking really slowly. But I also get that, first of all, trying to, for example, have automatic subtitles is an impossibility because no AI system has any idea of what I'm saying when all the words are linked together. And so on. So I thought, yeah, let me do some training. And this, I have taken another course in public speaking, and I do feel any communication skill we can learn as vets can be applied in consult. I for sure can feel it. All that I've learned through all the courses I've taken, I apply it in my consult, and it's like such a big difference in the rapport you can build with the owners when you are able to use your body language, your facial expressions, the rate of your speed, having pauses, and being able to listen. All those abilities that we don't learn in vet school, right? So I can only encourage you, if you can, and when you feel like it, to learn more about speaking and how you come across and communication skills. Anyway, as a side, so that's why my voice might sound a bit rough. I want to tell you a couple of stories. These are two cases that turned out very differently, and they made me feel very differently. I think it's important that we are very aware of these things, what happens when we have a case that goes very well and when we have a case that doesn't go well, and why we feel like we feel, because these cases can either make us feel amazing or they can drag us down so much, and we need to be able to cope with this. So when I still had my clinic in Spain, we had a little it was some sort of Maltese typey dog that was brought in when my colleague, my business partner, was in the morning in the clinic. I think I was in somewhere else in the morning, and he had a little dog brought in that had either been run over or attacked by a big dog, I think. And it came out kind of last minute, so he gave it some pain relief, gave it some antibiotics. It didn't look like it needed any stitching up, and then he just put it in a kennel for observation. And then I came in a couple of hours later to take over and see if it needed any further investigations. We had a little clinic. We did have x-rays, but we didn't have like blood analysis equipment or anything like that. It was pretty basic. We didn't have ultrasound. Anyway, so I come in, and I think I'd had lunch with my husband. We both come in, and this dog is sitting in the kennel, and it just looks a bit odd. I had not seen it before. It was not one of our usual clients that just brought it in as an emergency because we were in the village and we were open. And it just looked a bit odd, and I couldn't put my finger on it because it's this like white fluffy thing, right? And it can be a bit difficult to see what's going on with these. Anyway, we let out of the kennel to see, if it had any lameness. Now that a couple of hours had passed, how it was doing, and it comes out and it just walks in the weirdest way, completely like very stiff, like Robocop. And it's making every step it takes, it makes the really funny noise that seemed to come not from its mouth, but from the dog itself. It was walking and it was like, wait, 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 wait. Bear in mind, back then, I was just a normal GP, that first opinion, but I hadn't done ER. So there was a lot of emergencies I wasn't familiar with. And I went to pick the dog up, and it had floated up like a balloon. And I was baffled. I was like, what the hell is going on? And it turned out that what had happened is, now, as if you're an ER doctor, you will know this, but some sort of damage to the chest, and some of the lungs have been damaged. Air was coming out into the chest, and there was also a rupture of the thoracic wall. So the air was actually, every time he breathed in, then the air would escape under the skin, and it just like blown his whole skin away from his body. So he was like fully blown. Now, my colleague hadn't had time, or he hadn't had help to place an IV catheter. And I can tell you the challenge of placing an IV in a dog where the skin is like separated and centimeter to a centimeter and a half from the dog itself, that was a challenge. But we managed, and we did some x-rays and then figured out what had happened. And I just did not have the equipment nor the experience to deal with this, right? The owners had no money, so we could not refer to anywhere more experienced. So I was texting the doctor I knew, an Argentinian vet that had tons of experience, and I asked him, "What the hell do we do now?" And he taught me over the phone how to make a homemade chest drain. Because we didn't have any valves, I didn't have any preparations. I had to go to the chemist and literally buy condoms, cut the tip of the condom off, attach it to a tube, insert the tube into the tract, and that served as a one-way valve. It was very dodgy. And imagine like not having any experience doing this, but I still managed to do it because it was like me or death, right? Because these people didn't have money to go anywhere else and we had to help the dog. So we put that in and then I think cleaned up some wounds, whatever it was, give it whatever it needed. And then I said to my husband, I'm going to have to stay overnight with this dog. There's no way I can leave it because what if it struggles to breathe? And if something terrible happens, I want to be able at least to put it to sleep so it doesn't suffer. So we set up camp in the clinic overnight because he decided to stay with me. He didn't want me to leave me alone there. And we both slept with the dog terribly overnight. And we saved it. He was okay in the end. And the clients were so grateful every time they see me in the supermarkets, you know, because it's a little village, right? You run into people. They just keep saying how amazing it was and how happy they are. And it was an amazing save. And they were just so grateful. And the hit of dopamine I got when I did this, it was just incredible because it was a very difficult case for me. It was completely off the wall treatment that was complicated and out of the box and very brave. It took a lot of courage for me to do because I've not done it before. And saving it and that feeling of accomplishment, that is so good. And I know anybody who's listening to me who's had anything like this, like a complicated case where you thought out of the box and you reacted quickly and you were courageous and you did it and you saved it, the dopamine hit we get is like, there's nothing like it. However, we also have cases that go to shit, right? So another case I had about the same time was a bit of a dodgy young man that had bought a German Shepherd, a puppy, didn't have any vaccinations, and he came in and it had all the symptoms of parvo. I can't remember if we had parvo tests back then. I think I did a test and it was positive. And I don't know about you, but I find like German Shepherds and Rottweiler puppies, especially, they are dead meat when they get parvo. But this puppy was so cute. It was still sort of okay. He didn't have much money either. So again, couldn't refer to anything with an intensive care unit. And this was Christmas. So I didn't really want to sleep in the clinic over Christmas, but I couldn't leave the puppy alone. I couldn't just leave it to die. The guy didn't have a lot of money. He was begging me to save this puppy. Who am I to say no, right? So I ended up taking the puppy home for Christmas, you know, setting up like a mini clinic in one of the bathrooms and basically just destroyed my Christmas because I was in about, can you imagine the smell of having a parvo dog, constantly cleaning that while you're trying to have like a romantic dinner? It was literally a shit show. But no matter how much I tried, all the meds I gave, the fluids, I was so on top of this puppy. I did everything. I put all my love, my energy into this puppy, tried to save it, and he died. And the feeling of failure in this case was devastating. I just felt, I knew I had done everything I could, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like if I had just known more, if I could just have done more. You know, I knew the dog was sort of damned since it came in, but losing a patient like this, when you put so much into it and done everything you can, I was really struggling. And the thing is that the feeling of failure is something we don't learn to experience as vets. All through our childhood, going through school, going through high school, getting into vet school, until the day we leave, we can avoid failure by studying more and by working harder. We are all pretty brainy people. In order to become a vet, you have to be, right? You have to be intelligent and you have to be a hard worker. And all through our life, in order to get to the end and come out at the other side at vet school, you have to work hard, you have to study a lot, and then you don't fail. So we can actually achieve coming out in our 20s, late 20s, and not having experienced and not ever gotten used to experiencing failure as such. And this is devastating because failure is guaranteed in healthcare, in any medicine, biology, science. You are going to find failure. Hell, life is full of failure. And if you've been used to, oh, I just need to study more, I just need to work more, I'll be fine, then failure will feel like something has gone terribly wrong. You have done something very wrong, and you are not as valuable as you think, and you're not as capable as you thought you were. You must have done something wrong. I just need to work harder. I just need to study more cases, take in more courses so I can avoid the feeling of failure. Now, we can all agree that the feeling of failure goes with often death and destruction, right? So when we fail in our field, some animal either suffers or dies, and the people that love this animal, they also suffer with it. So our failure has consequences. It's not like when you fail an exam, the consequence is only yours. We understand that our failure affects living beings, but it's also inevitable. Always. You will always have a point where you're going to fail because it's just not possible to save them all. And there's so many things that go into the factory of biochemistry that the bodies are, that there's no way you can know everything that's going on. And there's no way that the stars are always going to be aligned 100% for you to succeed. But apart from obviously the physical suffering and death from the pets and the suffering from the owners, what hits us most is the feeling of failure. The feeling of failure feels really bad. And if you're not used to feeling it, it can be very, very, very hard to get through. So there are 3 points I want to make to help you getting through failure, because you will experience it. The first thing you need to be aware of is be aware that you are feeling failure. The failure might be covered with guilt, with anger, with resentment, because failure can often feel or be combined with shame, and it's just something we don't want to feel. And our brains will try and protect us by throwing in some other emotions on top so we don't have to feel the failure, which could be resentment for the towards the clients that didn't have more money. It could be regret because we should have done something different. It could be anger because why was I put in this position? Or guilt, for example. No, like guilt is actually easier to handle than failure because we can kind of like then analyze and go over, and I should have and I could have, and why didn't I? And you need to be aware when you're having this feeling of failure. You think you feel terrible because somebody has died and you are seeing, the suffering or the death, and you think that that is making you feel bad. And it is in part. Of course, we have empathy and it hurts. But under that, there's a feeling of failure. And it's something you've been able to avoid until the day you left med school. But now it's here, and it's here to stay, and it's here to come back again and again. And you need to be aware that when you feel really low and you feel terrible, yes, there's everything going on around you, but within you, you have that feeling of failure. The second point I want to make is then being aware of what you're making this feeling of failure mean about you. Don't let your brain just run havoc now and create some narrative about you not being good enough, you being not valuable, how you are as a vet, how you are as a person, because our brains will often, our amazing problem solving and analytical brains will try and draw conclusions from this failure. And often there is no conclusion apart from it just couldn't be saved. Of course, we always want to evaluate and get feedback. And is that something we could have done better? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us feeling failure and then our brain straight away drawing all these conclusions about us and how we should have changed something. No. The third point is accept failure as part of our job. And this can be a hard pill to swallow because, as I said prior, we don't get taught this and we don't experience it almost all the way up until we leave vet school. And then we are faced with it like a bucket of cold water over us. It can take a lot of nervous system regulation to learn to accept failure because it feels so bad. It feels like something is pressing on our chest. We can feel even nausea. We can feel like there's this awful ball and tension in our stomach. We can have the sympathetic nervous system can go all overboard with any like stress symptoms. So the cortisol is running, you got adrenaline running, you got tachycardia, your breath is shallow, and your nervous system is completely decompensated. And it can take a lot of regulation to bring back and learn how to handle failure. Ask me how I know this, right? Um, so hey, you are not alone. I'm acknowledging how you're feeling sometimes because I know that all of us go through this. For me personally, and for a lot of people, just knowing what's happening and why it's happening is just a huge first step. Like, why am I feeling so bad? And what is happening inside me? What are the feelings I'm feeling? And why am I feeling like, what is the narrative my brain is telling me that making me feel so bad? Yes, we have the grief and we have the the frustration that we couldn't save the animal, but all that feeling of failure on top that you are not acknowledging, that you're just like letting one wild and all the stories around you, that is what's making you feel so bad. And when we don't know what's going on and we feel I can't handle this, like we feel like I don't know how to handle this, I feel overwhelmed, I feel it's too much, and I'm just too bad at this and I should never become a vet, and what is wrong with me? Knowing why you're having it and why you are so bad at handling it, knowing that you're not the only one, for me that is half the journey, done already. That is half the battle won. But if you want to take it further and you want to work on the how, like how can you learn to accept failure as part of the job? How can you learn not letting it get to you and just use it as feedback? Okay, right. So maybe with Pavo, like I should really insist that the owner take out a loan and just bring it somewhere where they might have, the serum, where they might be able to do blood transfusion, whatever it needs. Otherwise, I have to, put some boundaries in place, like knowing like how can I handle this and how can I protect myself and not letting it attack my inner being. If you want to learn the how and not just the what and the why, then you can get on a call with me so I can help you talk through it, help you see what are the patterns you're running, where you're not regulating your nervous system, where you're just letting your brain spin like crazy and tell you all these horrible stories about you. Coaching is hands down, definitely 100%. It's like the fastest and the most effective way to overcome these issues that so many of us have, because we have developed these weird coping mechanisms that we don't even aware of to try and overcome, like this feeling of failure that we just cannot accept having. Like we might overwork, study more, try to take more courses. We might buffer, with drinking, with overeating, with over exercising, whatever it is. But with coaching, we can stop the spin and we can stop the overwhelm. We can stop the beating ourselves up and just look at exactly what happened, why you're not a failure, even if you feel, the feeling of failure, and how you can learn to cope so much better and regulate your nervous system. If you want help with this, which I can 100% recommend. If you want to coach with me, your first session is free, which is where we would look at what's going on for you, what are your patterns, and what should you work on. And there's so much value in just becoming aware of your patterns, right? Just knowing like what's going on and then looking at, okay, so now I know what I'm doing, I know why I'm doing it. Let's look at how can we address it and how can I go forward on this path, in this profession, in this field, and deal with the failures that are going to come our way, no matter what we do and how good we are. As always, the link to booking your call is in the show notes. It's right there. Also, feel free to reach out to me through email or through any social media if you have any questions or you just feel a bit wary of getting on a call. It can be a bit daunting just jumping on with a strange person. Although I hope you feel like you know me a bit because you've been listening to me or watching me on YouTube, hopefully for a while now. This is episode 26, I think. So, and I feel I know a lot of you because you comment on my post and you reach out to me and say what it means to you about my podcast. Some of you email me and tell me about cases that's happened. So I'm not a total stranger, right? And when you come on screen with me and I meet someone for the first time, I don't feel you're a stranger because I see all of you as, my friends, as the next one in line, doing the same that I always been doing. And you're just you are where I was years ago, basically. So don't be a stranger, but if you feel a bit overwhelmed by getting on a call, just email me, text me, message me by any means, and ask me any questions and have a bit of like maybe a bit of conversation so you can feel a bit like what it is like to talk to me. I'm always open and I will always set time off to talk to any of you. That's all what I have got for today. It was so lovely to speak to you. Have an amazing week and speak next week.